buying time, killing people next in line. Lower classes, social slime, they don't matter. Genocide, sick from water, sick from air. Making money, they don't care. Caesar shit, force of air. Fuck them back, it's only for they bomb. They shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape. They burn the kids. No one leaves countries. Lie to your face, fight and die. 'Cause God forgives. Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line. Lower classes, social side, they don't matter. Genocide, sick from water, sick from air. Making money, they don't care. See the shit, force of air. Fuck them back, that's only fair. They bomb, they shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids. No one leaves countries. Lie to your face, fight and die. 'Cause God forgives. Yeah. Coming back around again.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Rock the Boat, right here on UCY.TV, my favorite network on the internet. And it is the 10th of the 10th today, which means I get out of Facebook jail today. So I'll be able to share some stuff with some other people. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I just got home a little bit ago. One thing I find really interesting here, and I'm going to paste this in the chat right away. Nenshi, who is the Muslim mayor of Calgary, Alberta, claims that his opponents' supporters are driven by racist ideology in a Facebook video. And 90-second video was an appeal for support from Calgary's Pakistani community. Now, he goes on to say that these are good European names, right? A video of incumbent Mayor Naheed Nenshi appealing for support is getting quite a reaction from some of his mayoral opponents. The video was posted to Facebook by Mashhood Azi on Friday. That's a good Eastern European, Western European name. Friday, but was later removed from public view. In it, Nenshi, the first Muslim mayor of a major Canadian city, makes a plea for support in a message to Calgary's Pakistani community, suggesting some of his opponent's supporters may be driven by racist ideology. There are forces out there in the community that are supporting my opponents that really want us to go backward, says Nenshi in a 90-second video. They don't want a city that is, you ready for the lingo here, folks? Are you ready for the UN globalist lingo? And this is the Muslim mayor. They don't want a city that is so inclusive for everyone. And it's absolutely incumbent on us to hold on to the city we're proud of to make sure that we vote. And we know that they are using a lot of technology to get people who don't believe in diversity, to get people who might be racist or haters out to vote. So we have to make sure we vote in even greater numbers. Nenshi's campaign manager, Zain Veji, says he's referring to online trolls. A cursory search of social media reveals numerous accounts, many of them anonymous, attacking Nenshi for his Muslim faith. What we are seeing is attacks being drawn on a certain line on a partisan basis, attacks being drawn on a certain line based on the background, and frankly based on several mannerisms of the candidate, Vijay said. Some of Nenshi's challengers are taking offense to that notion. A hopeful and former city councilor Andre Chabot says Nenshi mentioning his opponents in that context was unfair, suggests that we are all in collusion somehow and doing something nefarious, he said. Fellow mayoral candidate Bill Smith, a Calgary lawyer and former president of the Progressive Conservative Party, says his campaign hasn't been immune to online trolls either. It troubles me, he said. I don't spend a lot of time reading the comments anymore because it can be rather hurtful. But unfortunately, it's the nature of where things are these days. Now, what these candidates seem to not realize is that these so-called trolls might just be people saying what's on their mind. Now, I get hammered by trolls every now and again, too, and find it rather comical because you know just by their verbiage that they're trolls, and they can't offer a decent exchange, just mudslingers. But this idea that we have a Muslim mayor, going to the Pakistani community, suggesting his opponents, his white opponents, because all his opponents are white, are driven by racist ideology. Now, that's enough for me to drop kick this guy right to hell out of here, and he needs to be drop kicked out of here. He was a world mayor, which means he's absolutely a puppet of the globalists. And so I find it rather, for a mayor to come out, he's a two-time mayor going for his third term, to talk about haters and racists and talk about his inclusivity and his diversity, just proves beyond a shadow of doubt that this guy needs to go bye-bye. So anyways, I'm going to throw this in here. You can watch the video if you want. You don't have to watch it if you don't want. This was on CBC News Calgary. If you're just listening, you can go look it up, or you can go to my Facebook, Rock the Boat Radio, and it's posted there. I really wanted to get some songs made, but we didn't get there. And I feel bad about that because it could have been a lot of fun. So I just posted it. The start of the songs up on Facebook with this post attached to it. This idea that if you're not a globalist idiot, if you're not a useful idiot, that you're a racist or a hater. We were getting along just fine before the influx of the globalist, latest globalist agendas. So that's in there. You can watch it if you want. All I put on my Facebook was the one girl, who Karen, I had her on the show once or twice, who's running for school board trustee. She's the only one out there telling the truth, and they came down on her like a ton of bricks. All these professors and the Heath's, Nancy's friends, who are mostly professors, come down on her like a ton of bricks. CBC come down on her like a ton of bricks, calling her a radical, and then the school board is saying, well, she may not be the only one, right? So to have that kind of nonsense go on top of Karen Draper, who's the only candidate there talking the truth, and then to have this lion puppet Muslim come out and start calling people racists and haters and all this kind of stuff is over the top as far as I'm concerned. Put this clown on a boat and send him somewhere that he might belong, because he certainly doesn't belong in this nation. So, we toyed around with the song, the goodbye song, so I just put up here, sing it, na 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 na, Naheed, goodbye, and I also put up hit the road, Nancy, and don't you come back no more, and then I asked people, sing those or make up your own damn song, but have some fun with this guy, have some fun with the election. It's so crooked, it's pathetic. But it's like every other election. These things are set up, and they have nothing to do with the general public. The other problem with these municipal elections is that you get such a low turnout because people don't think they're important. They're the most important elections in the whole country. I don't care what country you're in. The local election is by far the most important elections in the country. This is where you live. And people think that the municipal election is not important. Well, that's where the bylaws are put into place, that restrict your rights on your property, that add all kinds of user fees to you, and they're the ones that are forever upping your property taxes and whatnot. They're the ones that contract with the police to fill the coffers of the local councils, local municipalities or counties. And yet people think they're not important. So you have these really low turnouts, which is dangerous because a guy like Nenshi, who has the immigrant population behind him, who has the globalist puppets, i.e., the churches and the schools and the universities, all behind him. Very dangerous. So, while they have the Smith out in the lead, which is just as bad, because he's ex-conservative president of the Conservative Party in Alberta and a lawyer. Ooh, so we got a lawyer, we got a double liar who could be the next mayor, which is dangerous in itself, considering it was the Federal Conservative Party who signed us on to Agenda 21 in 1992, and it was the Conservative Prime Minister in 2010 who stood at the podium after the G20 meeting and stated very specifically that this, meaning the G20 meeting, which is just a meeting of international globalist money men, that this is a loss of national sovereignty. So anybody that's out there voting for Bill Smith and saying, oh, well, conservatives are good, well, give your head a shake, because as I've said so many times before, right and left were created specifically to keep you divided so they could do their dirty business. And they're also the boots, right and left boot on the tyrannical body that does the vetting of those who created it, the international globalists, who wish to see the end of nation states. So if you're voting right or left, you're either don't get it yet, or probably part of the problem. That's why the local elections are so important, because one, they're not parties. They're your local people, but they've been infiltrated forever as well. And the trick is to get involved in it so that none of these nefarious puppets ever get a chance at power at your local level. And then we can start to rebuild our nations. Till then, we're just going to keep spinning in the toilet bowl, because that's what's going on. We're being flushed. And we're going to end up in a place that I'm sure none of you wish to end up in. So, I guess I should go and take a quick boo, see what's going on the planet. I've only, I left this morning, and never know what happened in a matter of a few hours in this world anymore. So we'll go look up some news. Well, here's one that I was telling my buddy when we were heading to work today, that the Revenue Canada wants to tax employee discounts. This is one of the few benefits that retail employees have. They're vastly underpaid. They, in most cases, have no benefits. And so one of the benefits that comes to them by the retailer to show his appreciation, I guess, of their work and their low wages and stuff, tries to give them a little bit of a benefit where they can, give them employee discounts. Well, now the government, who needs cash to continue to pay for the influx of migrants, is now wanting to tax the discounts. So a lot of people get a 20%, 25% discount when they buy things in the store, which benefits the store owner, benefits the employee. Now they want to, if you have a benefit of 20, 25% off as an employee, they want to tax that purchase at the regular retail price, which is really pissing people off. I mean, you can't get much lower than that, because most retail workers are being paid way under a living wage, and so they want to take that benefit away from them as well. Now, if you're a migrant or that, well, you're probably getting paid more for not working than those who are working in the lower wage range, and mostly in retail. So that really sucks. Sears Canada wants court's permission to liquidate all remaining stores. So Sears has been around for ever, and they're going down the toilet, and they don't want to pay the employees that worked there for decades any kind of a payout. Just see ya. Let's see. Here's an interesting thing. We're working on a house, and plywood has gone up to about $50 a sheet for a piece of tongue and groove 5/8 plywood. And you go, what the hell's with that? Oh, it's because of the fires they had out west. Well, that must be the only place that has trees, is it? And every tree out west must have burnt down, did it? Well, no, and not. But it's a hell of a good reason for us to, take advantage and, basically double the price of a sheet of plywood so that we can benefit. And they do this constantly, I remember years ago they had that earthquake in California. We ordered a bunch of material for a job, which was whatever you want to call it, strand board, particle board, aspenite, whatever the hell you want to call it. And when it landed on the job site, it was double the price we were quoted when we ordered it. So what the hell is that all about? Oh, well, because of the earthquake in California. Yeah, what's the earthquake in California got the price to do with chipboard here in Ontario? Oh, well, you know how it is. And they do this constantly. You know, same thing with the hurricanes and the gas prices. And they give you these reasons, but, you know, when I worked on Hurricane Andrew, or after Hurricane Andrew, you couldn't use, it was against the law down there in Dade County and down at Homestead and that to use chipboard on these rebuilds. And so when I got back home, once again, the price of chipboard was right through the ceiling. And so I asked the local building company, going like, what the hell's with the price of this stuff? Oh, well, it's because of the hurricane, or the Hurricane Andrew. Really? Yeah. But it's illegal to use this crap there. Oh. Yeah, oh. You know, we get hosed so often, it's nuts. And why we put up with this crap is completely beyond me. I have no idea why we put up with this nonsense. They just keep piling it on, and we just keep taking it. I don't know. There has to be a point at some time that we just said, you know what? We're done. We're absolutely freaking done with this nonsense. So, but that's again, but back at the local level. That's where the power is. And someday, I hope, and I hope it ain't much longer, that people start to understand that's where the power is, and that they step up to the plate to take the power. Then we can get something done. Until then, we're just going to keep going south. And that's unfortunate. You know, I put this is getting nuts. We have a guy that wears a turban as the head of the NDP party federally. Now, he's not a white guy wearing a turban. You know, as we look, and, you know, even when you look at advertisements now, you know, there's fewer and fewer and fewer white people. Okay, we're just slowly being pushed into the background and normalizing what really isn't normal at all. And I don't know when we're going to come to terms with that. We have. I'm going to buzz back to Calgary here for a second because I'm quite interested in this election, because it really shows just how, if people weren't sure how crooked municipal elections are, Calgary, and to see what's happened to Calgary over the last couple of decades, or 3 decades now, this may be help. You know, here's supposedly the front runner, mayoral candidate Bill Smith, embarrassed by unexpected warrant to seize. What's this? Oh, this is really getting good. This is, see, they last week, now Nenshi, the Muslim, is supposedly 17 points behind Bill Smith, the conservative guy, and says, and then the media says, but it was a right-wing paper, it was a right-wing poll in a left-wing newspaper, or left-wing news, CBC. They don't do newspaper, I don't think, but they're online news. 17 point and 2 weeks to go, and Bill Smith has to be very careful now he doesn't step in it. And okay, so this is a setup because they know a lot of people don't want Muslim mayor again, so they put Smith ahead, put the Muslim mayor behind, and say but Smith can't step in it. Well, just Thanksgiving, apparently Bill Smith, I don't know, got an email list or something and emailed a whole pile of people, wishing them a happy Thanksgiving, and don't forget to vote for him. And apparently a lot of people weren't too pleased with that. Now I see he's embarrassed. I thought he was embarrassed about the emails, but now he's embarrassed because by an unexecuted warrant to seize property. Reports show Smith paid outstanding debts after learning a bailiff had begun searching for assets to seize. So here we have a guy that wants to be mayor, who the bailiff's after. CBC News has uncovered that a civil enforcement company was prepared to seize more than $24,000 in property from Calgary mayoral candidate Bill Smith's business earlier this year. In January, a warrant authorized Consolidated Civil Enforcement, a private company that offers bailiff services to recover personal property, to realize the sum of $24,545 because the security agreement between Smith's Professional Corporation and RBC, the Royal Bank Canada Small Business Loans, is now default. It was an error, and I'm a little bit embarrassed about it, to be honest with you, Smith told CBC News when asked about the debt. Well, I would also tell you that people make mistakes, and that was an error, said Smith when asked why voters should trust him with the city's finances if he struggles to manage his own. Smith explained his business address changed, and that a bank account was also transferred and wasn't linked to pay back the loan, which he said was for business. Yada, yada, yada. So now Mr. Smith has stepped in it at Thanksgiving and stepped in it on right today, I guess. So now we have some more stuff, right? So Nenshi's out there flogging away at his immigrant buddies in the schools and the preachers and the teachers who are all pushing the globalist agenda. And so that's two step in the poop pile for Smith in a couple of days. And just what I said to people, I don't know what I said on air or not, I says, this is all laid out so that people are going, oh, good, we're getting rid of them. And they don't bother coming out to vote, right? They say, oh, well, Smith's got it, I don't need to go vote or nothing. And then Nenshi, the Muslim, comes up the middle at the last moment to cross the line. And we have him for another 4 years. Which is looking more and more like. Now, whether, people, again, a lot of people have a lot of debt. This country's debt-ridden to hell. And a lot of people would maybe understand Smith's debt problem. But then again, if you're running for mayor and you were the head or the president of the Conservatives, you'd think, maybe you would be a little tighter on this stuff. So some people, this was for the Thanksgiving, some Bill Smith email recipients less than thankful for the holiday note. A Thanksgiving message from Calgary mayor candidate Bill Smith has stirred up some less than thankful responses from Calgarians who wonder how Smith got a hold of their email addresses. Mike Morrison, a writer and activist who has been vocal in his opposition to Bill Smith on social media, that would be one of the left people, was one of the people who received an email on Monday morning with the subject, Gratitude on Thanksgiving Day. The email ends with a postscript asking the receiver to share it with family and friends, volunteer for the Smith campaign, and donate to help pay for additional radio and TV ads. He thinks the United Conservative Party, of which he's a member, shared its mailing list with Smith's campaign. I can't think of another reason, said Morrison, who says he bought a PC party membership and is now a UCP membership in order to support pro-LGBTQ candidates. So apparently this guy has got a hold of an email list he probably shouldn't have had his hands on, and sent a bunch of emails out to people. And then today, I guess, the story comes out about his financial problem. And so that's 2 strikes in him in a couple of days. And meanwhile, Nenshi is calling his opponents haters and racists. And Bill Smith, being a white guy, I guess, would classify as a racist. So yeah, don't be surprised if Nenshi just sneaks up the middle. And I mean, after all, the guy is a Muslim, and the guy was chosen by the Rockefeller Foundation or the City of Calgary to be one of the 100 resilient cities implementing the agendas. And then she was a world mayor in 2014, I believe. So that's the pinnacle of puppethood, really. And they really don't want to lose the guy. So there's some games going on here, big time. And we'll see how it ends up. Probably, it doesn't really matter how it ends up. Calgary's not in good shape. But we can change all of this stuff. Run some real people, some honest people, some moral people, and run tons of them. I would love to see a campaign. I would love to see an election, municipal election, where instead of 30% of the people coming out to vote, I'd like to see where 30% of the people run for mayor or school board or council. Now that would be fun, and then we could get some good, honest, decent people running the local councils. Instead of clowns like this. These are all globalists. What's not sustainable? Private property. What's not sustainable? Private vehicles, along with air conditioning and a whole bunch of other shit. And these are the people that are implementing it. They're slowly taking you down. And people just can't seem to get engaged for whatever reason it is. I don't know. But they just can't seem to get engaged. It makes me so happy that a woman like Karen Draper, and I mean, they have beat her, they pulled down her Facebook, and she's not anything they say she is. She's simply a mother of a child who will be entering school, and she's concerned about what's going on in the schools. And at this point in time, she's probably far more knowledgeable about what's going on in the school board or in the school system than the so-called university-educated candidates, because they're just a bunch of airheads. And I'll guarantee you they did not study the way Karen studies. She's very astute in gaining the knowledge that she requires of what's going on. And most people don't know what goes on in the school board. They don't know the rules and regulations. They don't know the legislation. Don't know any of that stuff. And that's our problem. We are basically ignorant. The general population is generally ignorant of anything that matters. Oh, they can tell you who won what game show or what team won what game or who signed what contract or what TV talk show host is talking about. They're probably quite knowledgeable about that stuff, but none of that stuff matters. As far as things that you need to be knowledgeable about, nothing. They're not interested. I don't like to read that kind of stuff. You know, they'll do whatever they want anyways. I mean, I don't know how we get into that mental position of wanting, basically, to remain ignorant. I don't understand why people would want to be like that, but apparently it makes them sleep better at night. I don't know. I have no idea. But that seems to be what's going on. And here's a needle in looks like a kid's arm. Brace yourself for nasty flu season. Calgary doctor warns the flu season in North America typically looks a lot like the flu season that's coming to an end in the southern hemisphere, and Australia's flu strain was particularly nasty. Said Dr. Raj Bahawaja, a Calgary urgent care doctor. Are there any white people left in Calgary? And I'm not being a racist, it's a question. You know? It wasn't Dr. Bill Robinson. Is Dr. Raj Bahawahadiji, and he's a Calgary urgent care doctor. Now, why did they ask this guy and not some other doctor? Well, it's to push the agenda, of course. They could have asked a white doctor, but that would likely be seen as racist, I suppose. What do we got here? Well, this is important. Edmonton students build a better bong for medical marijuana users. Well, hot damn. That's important. This is interesting. That's a question. How did an Islamic State flag end up in Edmonton, Alberta? Flag sellers offer theories. A few years ago, Arif Douji, another good European name, owner of the House of Flags and Banners in Coquitlam, BC, got an odd request from a prospective customer. And so, a man who seemed to be based in New York sent over the design of a flag he wanted printed. At first, Dijwa did not know the meaning of the white logo set against a black backdrop, but something seemed fishy. After some online digging, he realized it was a flag used by followers of the Islamic State terror group. I didn't touch it with a dirty shirt, he said. Edmonton police have said an Islamic State flag was found last weekend in a vehicle involved in what they are investigating as a terrorist attack. And I wonder, so we had the Muslim run over a cop supposedly, and then run over some people in a rental truck before he flipped it. And somewhere they put, I don't see it here, but they put up a story about some girl who knew the attacker and put forward that he was such a nice guy and friendly and funny and all this kind of stuff. Well, of course, because he's a Muslim who attacks people, and well, we don't want any bad news coming out about that. So we'll bring in a story about him being friendly and funny and whatnot, and a really nice guy all around. So it don't happen. I don't see that story still here. Anyway, so you can get, I don't know where these Islamic flags come from. Don't care. But they need to not be in this nation or any other nation, unless you're a Muslim nation, which you're trying to turn our nations into, or an Islamic nation. And we're not going to go there, thanks. Thanks for the invite, but we're not going to go there. Now, you want to be treated the way an Islamic person would expect to be treated. Well, the only way that's going to happen is if you go to an Islamic country. Don't expect me, at least, to bend over and kiss your butt, because that ain't ever going to happen. So it's kind of interesting. Things that you didn't even hear about a few years ago are all being brought forward as basically normal. And none of it's normal. Now, here's another weird story. Now, I don't know who this woman is. I seen this a few days ago. But she looks, I don't know if she's Muslim or what the hell she is. Kenza Balatskized, 22, could be deported to Morocco if she's sentenced to longer than 6 months in jail. So, this woman was working at as a teller, and she was involved in a bank robbery. This is too nuts. Teller involved in bank robbery at risk of deportation and could get lesser sentence, says lawyer. So she was involved in a bank robbery, but because she's an immigrant, she could be deported. So a bank teller who helped her boyfriend and his friends rob a Calgary Bank of Montreal is hoping her deportation concerns will mean she won't receive as stiff a sentence as others who committed the same crime. So this girl's 22, worked at Bank of Montreal in the southwest neighborhood of Mission, British Columbia, where she provided confidential information about the bank to her then boyfriend, Salim Nasseri, who along with two others robbed the institution. Initially, police arrested the three robbers, believing Bazaksi was a victim before they realized it was an inside job. She was arrested in December 2014. Last week, she pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit robbery. She gave cops, whoever, a list of employees who would be present during the 2014 robbery, the layout of the bank, information about silent alarms, the locations where the money was stored, and details on bait bills and dye packs. On Friday, her sentencing hearing was interrupted so the lawyers involved could address the judge's concern that the proposed sentence of 6 months in jail was too low. "You are asking me to impose a sentence that is, I believe, unfit," said the Court of Queen's bench. Justice David Gates. This sentence appears to be tailored for immigration factors. I am not a rubber stamp. I am not satisfied you're even in the range. Brzezinski moved to the U.S. with her parents and siblings from Morocco when she was 2 years old, and then to Canada in 2010 when the rest of her family attained Canadian citizenship. Belensky didn't bother. The sentence of more than 6 months means she's at a higher risk of being deported to Morocco, where she no longer has family. Gates noted the starting point for the conviction of conspiracy to commit robbery is 5 years in prison. But mitigating factors can bring that sentence down significantly. During a break in court, Brzezinski approached her friends in the gallery of the courtroom and asked, 5 years? What the fuck? A handwritten robbery plan, key evidence against her came from a handwritten robbery plan police discovered in the car of one of the robbers. It was partially written by the bank teller and also had her fingerprints on it. Days before the crime, she abandoned her plan to rob the bank and tried to convince her boyfriend to do the same according to an agreed statement of facts. But Gates noted Brzezinski or whatever, Batsky, didn't call police or stay home the day of the robbery. It seems like a pretty weak abandonment, said the judge. So, 4 of the bank employees who were held hostage wrote victim impact statements describing how the robbery traumatized them. Several of the employees whose wrists were zip-tied together wrote about always looking over their shoulder. My life will never be the same. Wrote one, I'm terrified someone might be out there to harm me. And so the robbers, let's see, the robbers' defense lawyer Greg Dunn said the collateral consequences of the threat of deportations are significant enough that Beletsky should receive a 6-month sentence. Dunn asked Gates to respect the negotiations between himself and prosecutors, which brought both parties to arrive at a joint submission of 6-month sentence plus 2 years probation. When you look inside the mind of a 20-year-old, they don't think like you or I. They don't think about long-term consequences. So, 2 other robbers, Matthew Alex Valdez and Lucas Wayne Windsor, pleaded guilty in 2015. Valdes received a 5.5-year sentence for his role, while Windsor got a 5-year, 2-month prison term. And so the teller will be back in court next month for a continuation of her sentencing. Now, this is absolutely freaking ridiculous that, because of immigration concerns, this is the big problem that's going on here. If you are anything other than a white guy, basically, you seem to be getting special privileges all over the place here, a white guy or a white gal. You set up the robbery, you're involved in the robbery, and the baseline is basically 5 years. But because you don't want to go back to Morocco, you should only get a 6-month sentence. And she probably will get a 6-month sentence so that she won't be removed or sent home. And this is happening way, way, way too often. Now, having said that, I should put this video, still trying to track this guy down, and I'm not exactly sure who he is, but a friend turned me on to this guy. He's definitely Canadian, and he actually says this extraordinarily well. this was to do with the multi-million-dollar settlement jumped over the courts, the Muslim guy, and gave, I don't know what he got, 10.4 million or whatever. But this guy actually did some background into the family and that, and found out that none of them ever really worked. Just the father and some short little stints. And how is it that these people in his family can afford to fly from Canada, the Middle East, to somewhere else, and then back and here and there and all over the place? How is that possible? Well, it's possible because we're paying for it. And then the question, what was with this? I think it was a $10.4 million settlement, even though I think he killed somebody when he was like 15, throwing grenades or whatever. But this guy does a pretty good job of saying what needs to be said. And I got to take my hat off to him. Hopefully we can get him on the show sometime. So throw this in. Enough Canada, we don't pay terrorist families. Make a stand. It's not that long a video. It's got some news reporters. I mean, it starts out with Tucker Carlson as I stick my finger down my throat. But these are just some little bits of news pieces that had to do with this payout. And so I'm going to stuff this in here. If you know who he is, let me know. It's called Little Gray Cells as YouTube. But I think he's Canadian, and I wouldn't mind having him on the show. So we'll stick that in the chat. And he's absolutely right. You know, it's time. I don't care if you're somebody just made a comment on Facebook on that. Yeah, I don't care. But we need to understand what's at stake for our nations in the West. You know, who set up all this migrant nonsense? The UN and the globalists. And what is their plan? End of nation states, your nation, and the implementation of Sharia law. So, you know, at some point, you gotta kind of get a grip on this stuff, you know, and understand that your politicians don't represent you. It's impossible for them to represent you. They never did, and they don't now. So if you don't have any representation, then what is it that these people are actually up to that are running your nations? Well, no good is what they're up to. And they've been up to no good for a very, very, very long time. And you got to come to grips with it. You know, simple way to figure this out is just accept the fact that you've been lied to since the day you were born, you know. Well, here's a little bit of good news. I see this. Utah officer who handcuffed nurse in video after refused to draw blood is fired. Now, most people, I think, would have seen that video where they were trying to get a nurse to draw blood out of a guy, and she said, well, I can't do it because none of what you're saying meets the requirements for me to do it, and therefore I can't do it. And then the cop jumps her and pushes around, handcuffs her, drags her out to the car, throws her in the car, has her and arrests her, and he got fired. Hot damn. You know, my question was all the guys that were at the hospital standing around with their little cell phones and that, why would you allow this mongoloid to manhandle one of your staff like that when you knew she didn't do anything wrong, when she knew when she told the cops that I can't do it? That should have been enough. Okay, you don't have a warrant, you haven't done anything, you haven't presented anything that would allow me to do what you're requesting I do, therefore I can't do it. And she ends up handcuffed. And well, here's another little shot at the Christian people. You got to love this stuff. I mean, this is such a setup. Now he's not. This story is out of Maine, and it's this transgender Maine teen named Homecoming King at new school. Styles Juschelag says he has received both support and blowback since his story went public, but he's done nothing but spread awareness and love. So that could be the story, I suppose, but the story is, the headline is a little different than what I said. This is the actual headline. Transgender Maine teen kicked out of a Christian school named Homecoming King at a new school. So this is another shot. Anytime that he can take a shot at the faith of those who came to populate this new these nations in the West, North America, anything to do to take a shot at that, they do. So Juschelag said he transferred to Noble this year after he was asked to leave the Tri-City Christian Academy in Somerworth, New Hampshire, because of his gender identity. His story has been widely circulated on social media since he was crowned Homecoming King. He said he has received both support and blowback, yada, yada, yada. God. Anyways, I'm going to stuff this in here too, because this stuff all makes me really want to throw up. Transgender, okay, is a mental problem. Been proven over and over and over again. I feel sorry for this kid. I really, truly do feel sorry for this kid. Because the way they're indoctrinating these children now, and the way that they basically scout them out, you know. These are people who are, you know, maybe not have the greatest self-esteem or whatever, but they scout these people out. And I feel sorry for this kid because, you know, his chance of suicide is basically off the charts. So I'm off the charts too. Anyways, everybody have a great night. I'm
selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line, lower classes, social slime, they don't matter, genocide, sick from water, sick from air, making money, they don't care, seize the shit, force them out, fuck them back, it's only for their mom, they shoot, they kill,